Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
I like that green. Should be one of those that- that's already in. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the October 3rd Town Council informational work session. Let the record read that the council is present minus Councilman Morris and Pardick. We'll begin with Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have one topic for the, general meeting, and that is the Chesapeake Beach Water Park discussion of a path forward, and I'm going to turn it over to the town administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have provided a public memo in our town council meeting packet this evening, and it includes the community opinion survey, and this is a summary of results received. And we want to take a moment to thank our town citizens, county residents, local businesses, and guests of the town for taking the time to provide your feedback. So we've received a large response rate in our community opinion survey, about close to 2,000 participants, which really confirms the pivotal point that we are for a key recreational amenity of the town that is loved by so many. And I just wanted to take a moment to recognize that through the feedback, we do see that the park holds significant value from both a social and community aspect. And just to also state that this value has been possible through the support of town council, the support of the town general taxpayer, resources, and through our staff at the water park who bring life to the park each and every year. And so the message this evening is one of transparency to the town taxpayers of the fiscal position of the park as the town council reviews improvements that are needed to maintain this key recreational amenity for the community. And so I'm going to turn it over, Mayor, to our town treasurer, who will provide an overview of the fiscal position of the water park.
Good evening. So last week, there was a memo sent to town council in regards to the water park's current financial position, as well as the future and the potential impact based on the direction of the park. And through this, I just wanted to highlight a number of key issues. After analyzing the data with the closeout of the season and also looking at the community results that Holly had mentioned before, there are critical issues and topics that are requiring discussion and action from town council. Through the survey responses and actual attendance, we found that the town residents have expressed their strong desire for the park to be utilized as a community amenity that's affordable and accessible, as opposed to serving as a tourist attraction. Also, town residents have communicated their disapproval of offsetting the cost of out-of-town residents' use of the park. However, the out-of-town residents have expressed an unwillingness to pay that true cost of their usage of the park. Commitment to similar operations as this past season for the 2024 season is going to require an estimated near $1 million in funding from the general fund. Beyond that, beyond the 2024 season, there will be significant requirements from the general fund through the use of reserves, operating budget, or long-term debt, which includes a reoccurring annual operational offset, as well as immediate contributions for capital improvements. The forecast and historical estimates that are included in this memo do not account for the unallocated costs that have been absorbed through the general fund and also the utility fund in the current, future, and past years. Utilizing a decreased rate structure, which was formulated through the responses from the survey, does not reduce or eliminate the projected loss in revenue. Due to the substantial, significant deficit in reserves, which we had mentioned and as part of our 24 budget creation, town council requirement of action. Moving forward to 2023 seasonal results. We had anticipated a declining attendance, which we saw, and due to unavoidable substantial cost increases and the attendees' unwillingness to pay the current rates, we are experiencing an estimate of a $700,000 loss for the 23 season. That is from prior season, 2022 season. Two things to note from these seasonal results. These losses were mitigated through cost-saving measures that were taken from town staff, including limited operations of the grill in the store, along with limited staffing levels based on the use of the park. There are, as I mentioned, significant direct and indirect costs unallocated to the water park that are being absorbed through the general fund, in addition to $2 million approximately that's due to the utility fund related to capital connections. Looking forward to the 24 season and the improvements needed. Knowing this seasonal data, looking at the economic forecast related to the continuously increasing cost, infrastructure needs, and community feedback. These projections that you'll see in the memo, which for the public is also included in the agenda for tonight, these scenarios will vary greatly based on the decisions and the direction from you all, along with what potential footprint for the water park. However, as I had mentioned, we are forecasting nearly $1 million in loss for the 2024 season, assuming that operations would be similar to this past season in the structure of the operations as well as attendance levels. Taking it further, town staff has forecasted revenues and expenses for this next season. We'll call that scenario 2, utilizing these results and the customer's willingness to pay. And I mentioned before that these numbers came from the survey itself and the average cost that the survey participants said that they were willing to pay. And the rate of the revenue, which is illustrated in this table, does not exceed the rate of increase in expenses. Decreasing these rates to increase attendance does not alleviate or improve this financial outlook. You'll see that there's a greater loss in scenario 2. These two forecasts also do not take into consideration the potential repairs and maintenance needs with the aging of the park that may be known or unknown, as well as significant infrastructure needs. And Wayne will speak on this later in the meeting of the multi-million dollars that would be required for reconstruction of the park. Last couple of things to consider. In this memo, you'll also see a table that kind of highlights the comparison of year to year for the last few years. And the water park has been operating at a loss since FY18. This chart shows those losses by fiscal year, but also shows the seasonal attendance in those years, and along with the percentage of admissions that was town. So if you go to FY18, you'll see that 2.5% of the guest count of what this past season was still a revenue loss, and only 29% of that was town residents in attendance. And then finally, I just wanted to reiterate one more time that there is a significant deficit in the water park reserve, and this includes nearly $3 million in interfund receivables to the general fund that may or may not be collectible. The water park for next season and future season is going to require substantial costs that are going to come from the general fund or would be needed from the general fund. And like I said, that would be immediate operating and capital, along with long-term operational commitment annually. And I'm going to turn it back to Holly.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. So as we understand the fiscal position from our town treasurer in terms of operating the park in its current condition, and what the expected loss would be in the future seasons with our current infrastructure, we will now hear from our town engineer, who has met on site several times to look at some different options that we could start considering to make improvements that would attract multiple different age ranges and also decrease operating costs moving forward. And those expenses that would be spent on that current infrastructure could potentially be moved to capital improvement line items. So Wayne, thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Holly. So you have before you, I think Holly's putting up on the screen as well, a couple of concept plans we took a look at to help reduce the overall staffing requirements and provide new amenities for the park. As you know, you have a 28-year-old park there that's showing its age. The two concepts we have generally follow more modern desires in water parks or aquatic centers, and that is a larger open pool. They also happen to follow, ironically, the survey that it came out. So we looked at the survey and said, yes, that sounds very familiar. This is the general trend of water parks or aquatic centers or community pools in the nation. So looking at some of the work that we have been involved in previously and kind of looking at the survey, we developed these two concepts. The first one is a leisure pool. It saves the existing structural amenities, the tower, the building, the pump room. It saves the existing slides. All that stays and creates a leisure pool in a location outside what we call the slide chute. So the slide chute's at the end of the slides. And you create a leisure pool outside of that. Off to the right, you'll see a competition pool. It could just be a leisure pool. It's sized for U.S. Olympic size half pools. That's a typical trend. What that means is there's 10 lanes in an international event, and there's 5 in the U.S. That's what that is. That's a 5-lane pool. And then we're also have recently seen the incorporation of what this is called a spray ground or a water area where kids can run around on a rubber mat and get squirted with different things coming up out of the ground or dumping on their heads. It's like a playground, but it's a spray ground. And the remainder of the area would be used as a patio for people to lounge and watch the kids or eat lunch or whatever they want to do. You can see along the edge of Old Bayside or along Bayside Road in Gordon Center, we have some seating. And then most of the buildings are remaining. Some of them may be repurposed, but they're remaining. Trying to utilize the existing footprint of the existing amenities that are there and reduce costs for any improvements. Go to the next one, Holly. Next one gives you a little larger area. So the leisure pool is larger. And what we're trying to do here is follow generally the existing improvements. So if you look at the leisure pool to the left, you'll see it kind of follows the existing walls within the park. Try to use as much of it as we can, try to reduce costs for reconstruction. And the leisure area in the competition pool is turned sideways to allow the spray ground to be more on the corner. Mainly, quite frankly, is that's in most cases where we do these improved parks. That's the marketing feature. People see the little palm trees sticking up in the buckets and it looks pretty neat. It's an attracting feature. That's why we typically want to try the spray ground if we can on the corner so people can see it. But it gives you the same exact seating areas, a larger patio area and seating. So our goal here was to try to preserve as much of it as we could to make the economic impact as less we could and put the spray ground on the corner where it really would be an attractant. So we looked at these and we kind of talked costs and what would this look like, this scenario. We built the playground very similar, a aquatic center, very similar to this in 2018. We actually built 2 of them. That was a ground up project where we had to do all the ground up. This would not be that extensive. We wouldn't have to, start from scratch, if you would. We have the pump room, we have the slides. That was a $4 million project in 2018. If we were to build that project, not this one, that project again today, it's probably between 5 and 6, could be 7 with the inflation we've seen since 2018. By reusing as much as we can, I'm going to guess that this is going to be a $3 to $5 million project when we look at it at renovation to create a new aquatic center.
Thank you, Wayne. I have some comments, and then I'm going to go to the town council. Today, we need community more than ever. One benefit of the COVID pandemic has been the clarity that a sense of community has on our well-being. We need opportunities for gathering to provide a sense of togetherness. We need opportunities to socialize with our neighbors, our friends, and our families. What better way to provide a sense of community than through recreational amenities? I find the concept of a community Chesapeake Beach Aquatic Center to be very exciting. The town has not had a pool for children, families, seniors to swim for 51 years, when the town's population was 326 people. We now have a population of over 6,500 people. That's a 2,000% increase. It's high time to move forward. Living on the Chesapeake Bay, we need pools for our children to learn and practice swimming, for adults to cool off and socialize, lounge chairs for adults to relax, read, telework. The ability to swim saves adult and children's lives. Our 6,500 residents deserve this community amenity. When we talk about supporting our local businesses, we need to remember the support of our residents to provide all the businesses in the Twin Beaches. Local amenities keep our residents in town, enjoying all that Chesapeake Beach has to offer, rather than have them searching for activities outside of our community. Community amenities support local businesses by drawing our residents into the center of town, as opposed to leaving town to frequent businesses and shop elsewhere. We're in the midst of a 21st century renaissance here at the beach. A new beach elementary school just opened. The beautiful library is set to open in April of 2024. And quite frankly, I think that a May 2025 grand opening of the community Chesapeake Beach Aquatic Center will be a wonderful asset to our community. This is my vision for the town council to consider. As I turn to town council now for their input and counsel, I do request, there are three things that staff and I need to understand from the town council in terms of direction moving forward. And you have this at the dais with you. Number one, decide on the 2024 season operations. This will change the recommendations for funding. Number two, immediate short-term substantial capital commitment. Number three, long-term annual operating commitment from the general fund, which right now is unknown, dependent on design, staff needs, that sort. So I'm going to go to the town council now, and I'm going to begin with some questions that Councilman Pardick submitted. We have his questions and answers, and then I'll proceed with those who are here.
I'm going to read Councilman Pardick's questions that he submitted. So he's mainly concerned if the water park is safe to open in 2024 and beyond under its current condition, and who makes that call. When there was a site visit with several of the council members, Jay had expressed some concern about the infrastructure, mainly the cosmetic infrastructure, not the infrastructure surrounding the pools themselves. So to answer this question, and Wayne can fill in if I'm missing any specific details, but as our town engineer has advised, there's really not a specific water park inspector. We only have structural and civil engineers that can answer that question and make that professional determination. But the answer will not be definitive, that no one can really see what is going on under the plastered surface at the water park. And our town engineer has expressed that he shares Jay's concern that even if it appears to be okay today, the level of degradation below the surface is unknown. Wayne, did you have anything additional to add on that?
I think that
question?
covers all. Happy to answer any questions later.
The second question is, what do flooding productions look like for the area in another 10, 20, or 30 years? And is it the right location for another pool? So I will quickly pull up our flood map that our engineer has referenced that we should be reviewing when we talk about improvements within this area. So in terms of public infrastructure projects such as this, we look at a 25-year lifespan for a pool in this area. And you can see on the screen, we're using the 2050 flood maps as a resource here, and the area will not be inundated. So the concern for that and the time frame or useful life of a new park is minimal. James, I think. Okay.
No, I agree with that.
Third question. Building and renovating another water park or pool is a big investment. He appreciates the draft plans being proposed in-house, but should we be enlisting additional professional pool designers? And the answer to that is yes, and we are working on that. So we are, our town engineer is drafting the in-house kind of concept plan. So the goal would be to understand from the public and town council which features we would like to see. And then we would go out for a design build RFP to actually bring that forward. And that will also give you your more definitive cost estimates as well. And so the answer to that is yes, we will be seeking additional expertise. The last question is, what is the ballpark cost estimate for renovations? So as we've stated, cost really does depend on how much we can reuse within the existing facility. So our town engineer has made a concept plan that reutilizes the majority of those items. So like our pump room, refurbishing the slides to keep those costs down. But the total cost does rely on being able to reuse a lot of those features. But the design build firm selected would need to confirm these assumptions. And then based on reusing a significant portion of the existing improvements, the building, the pumps, the slides, et cetera, and working within the existing pile-supported structure of the foundation, we are estimating to be able to save money on this project. But the cost estimates right now are between $3 and $5 million, and it could be more depending on those. Go ahead. This is for new. A new concept, new design. Yes, I would say that useful life of the old pool is exceeded.
And all those questions? Thank you, Keith. I'll turn it over to Councilwoman Hartman.
Sure. That one, right there? Just trying to give more pool area. You probably have more people who want to lounge in the pool than you do want to compete. So we create a larger leisure pool, and the pool on the left was, if you look at the underlying aerial, you can see we're following the existing walls that are in the pool area today. Again, trying to use those walls as best we can, squaring them off, but using them. And then the other competition pool was turned sideways, and we just had additional area there we could use for leisure to allow for additional space for people to enjoy the pool while we put the spray ground on the corner. Typically, the one pool, the leisure pool, would be 42 inches. The competition would vary depending upon what sports you want to compete with.
And then the pump room that would be possibly saved,
Mhm.
that's separate from those dark, scary little tunnels
Yes.
that went beyond, right?
Yes. So if you're standing on the tower today to get on the slides, that building under it is saying, that's what we're talking about.
So it's nothing underground.
No.
We had said before for the old pool, when we were talking about using funds to rehab the superstructure, that was $3 million, right?
To rehab the faux rocks?
Yeah.
Yes, I do believe we had a $3 million price tag on that, yes.
Catch up the old rocks or put the new pool?
So,
That's a tough one.
right, so the concept would decrease operating costs,
Mhm.
the revision, and so that would be the key to that.
Okay. And do we think more people will be accommodated here? I mean, if we have pools that are straightforward that you can see around, would it be possible then to have more citizens here? Or is that then still totally overcrowded as the dock pictures that we saw earlier in the year?
think with these new revised concept plans, you'll have much more open space. So the idea would be that you'll have lots of different activities. I think under the current arrangement now, it's sort of in the water or not. This is going to allow some more activities that are outside of the water as well. So I wouldn't think that the necessarily capacity of the park would change per se.
So it would still be the, I don't know, 500-ish that we do now. Okay. And just a question on the first question about the 2024 season operations. Can we have a season if we're rebuilding? If we want to do a rebuild, can we have a season?
I mean, my thought process is to pretty much, if you're going to do something of this magnitude, you do it right.
Mhm.
And the best way I see to do it right would be to close the park for the 24 season so we can begin what we need to do. Not only design work, but it's got to, we got to knock some stuff down and build some pools.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And,
Okay,
and
so
I think that's the only way it
it's
could
the-
be open and running for the May 25 goal.
So it's either or. Either we're building a new pool or you get a 2024
Right.
season. Great. Okay. And as far as the short-term capital commitment and that, do you want us to talk about that now or is that a later thing? Okay. So long-term operating commitment. Will we get a ballpark for what that's going to be? I mean, if it's dependent on, for example, let's say it costs $15 for somebody to use a park in this configuration, and we want to make it $10 for local people or $5 for local people, then we're going to, for every local person in there, the town's going to kick in $10. So that's something that might flex, but I don't see that being grossly expensive. So what other long-term commitment will we have?
So it would depend on the configuration. So that is going to be the key determining factor.
Mhm.
So we don't have that number yet, but we will once we work through the concept plans further
Okay,
and
so it
understand
has
how
to-
many staff will need to be on site
Yeah.
to monitor the facility. And that will depend on the end design.
Mhm.
One of the ways we're saving costs with these designs is limiting the amount of lifeguard staff you need.
Right.
You have larger open areas where people can observe instead of tunnels where people can't observe.
Mhm.
So that, once we obtain a final design, if you will, from a design build firm, we can then project those numbers.
Okay, and we'll know the features that went into those numbers. Okay, great. And could I ask Brittany a question? What can you give some examples of the unallocated funds that we haven't been taking into account?
In the general fund or the utility?
Okay, either.
Well, the
Okay, both.
utility is capital connections and metered water usage.
Okay. Oh, and it's leaking like a sieve too.
And then the general fund, there's a number of things that we've started to, as you probably remember from the 24 budget process, we started to allocate proper costs to the water park that are kind of across all funds
Mhm.
that have always just been historically absorbed through the general fund.
Right.
Staff cost,
Mhm.
a majority staff cost.
Yeah, yeah.
And also things as like professional services, our audit. The general fund pays for the full audit and a
Okay.
number of the contracts and shared costs. Some of our
Mhm.
systems, some of our accounting systems and such forth.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sure.
Good evening. The talking points that you have, are those in the email?
Memos are public, yes.
What we were commenting, I think there were 3 things you wanted us to comment on this evening. Yeah, they're not in this, so I don't have a copy of that. Oh, wait a minute, look at that. They're on the page it turned out. It's a good Tuesday. I just, again, we're just kind of absorbing a lot of this, and I just kind of got some observations and stuff. One thing I wanted to ask was, community pool, you said it was the mayor's vision for that. I remember the last discussion we had about the use of that space over there, and it seemed wide open to me. I know the mayor even mentioned putt-putt. I mean, I don't know. The pool seems like a good idea. I'm just wondering, we just seemed to diving headfirst into community pools. I did notice that there were maybe at least 3 questions on the survey to this public specifically talking about pools. And there were some other questions specifically asking about how the taxpayers felt about using their money to fund projects, if you will, for, out of town folks, wherever they may fare. I was just wondering we're diving headfirst into pools, and I was just wondering where that came from.
So mainly from survey participant responses across the board, all categories, there was no interest in reimagining that space.
That question.
Right. So that is really what that is being generated from. However, I think with these new concept plans, there's a lot more of open space structure that you could potentially add on additional interactive features in the future. And so that has been discussed. And I think the splash pad is kind of the start to that. That's something that could possibly be open for longer than just a season of a pool. And so, you could go back in at a later date. A town council could add putt-putt or other activities that could be more accessible potentially year-round within that space. So the key is leaving enough open space to allow for that expansion in the future.
Thank you. Wayne, you mentioned the spray area, I think, and I guess you have a couple concepts there. You said there was a modern desire in providing those type of designs. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. The trend in water park or water usage in communities and municipalities is more of a playground, more of a interactive family feel. And that's what we're showing you here. That's just, when again, we built parks in 2018. I haven't built one since 2018, but it was a clear trend in the nation to go to this type of facility, where you had a leisure area where families could just leisure together, maybe throw a ball around, or you had an area if you wanted to do competitions because you decided you wanted to have a youth swimming league, you could do that. But the spray ground or the playground or the splash pad, people call them different things, are really designed for the small kids who mom and dad want to sit and let them run. They can run through the water and they can sit next to them, for 5 feet away and watch them get dumped on with a bucket, and they have a blast. It's really just, the trend is to try to bring the whole family into interactive sport.
Sure. I mean, and then a concept like that is right up that alley. And, even let's just throw the putt-putt out there. I know we didn't kick around a whole lot of different options there, but that I don't see families huddling around and, in that type of environment. These concepts you have clearly, like the flexibility and adding the length of the Olympic pool. It sounds promising. Did we have an estimated demolition cost? Is that a little more pegged to what we're planning on doing? I guess we want to
Yes.
concept first and then figure out.
Yeah, typically when we design these, and this will be a little different. It's not a ground up facility. If I had a flat field, I could kind of target what the cost might be a little better. But when we get into the design build firm, we'll work with them to come up with a concept. Just dream the dream and figure out what we want. What would be the ultimate dream? What's it cost? All right, well, that costs $10 million. We're not going to spend that money. How can we save that? How can we save money and get in this budget line item? And at that point, we'll know what we can demo, what we don't have to demo. It's really kind of premature to project line items, if you will.
Yeah, just the demolition and the design too, are probably need to be budgeted. You said design build. Are we thinking about a design build pool company, and what kind of bids could we expect to get? Something like this. I mean, we'd want to try to get 3 really good bids on that. Or would we be optimistic we'd be able to get that doing a design build? I guess that's just somebody a builder partnering with an architect that can come together the way they want.
Typically, what we have seen in the design build arena for the water parks like this are national firms who do this for a living all across the country. The 2 we built in 2018 were exactly that. And we put out an RFQ, request for qualifications, with basically the concept plan, which we show here, and our desires of what we want our park to look like and what we want it to run like and what we want the cost to be. Then we take bids from those national builders and we pick one.
So those bids will include modifications to existing conditions to provide the vision.
The initial RFQ bid will not include construction cost bids. It'll include design services and an experience list of what they've done. So we-
Design only.
Correct. So we can look at what parks have they designed? Do we like their style? Do we like what they've done? What's the cost to design it? We can make a selection from there.
Then the design aspect of dealing with what's existing is something that's just going to come along with whoever we select, you think?
Yes.
That's a tricky part.
Yeah. Once
Somebody,
Once the design.
somebody
builder-
that's used to showing up to a field and building a pool, and they like it easy like that, I'm not sure.
I think the one benefit that we have recognized is that actually the structure there is a benefit because you have the piling.
The pilings
in
are
place.
amazing. I mean, you could put the flagship on that, but, you know, or I'm not saying there, I mean, it probably sky's the limit, with the options there. Those pilings and all that stuff's low enough. Get into the nuts and bolts of that.
And I think the important part too is that with this new concept, we had planned for all the mechanical to be also within the piling structure as well, so that we do not have the issue that we have now where the mechanical pieces are sinking against the pool that's on pilings and snapping and causing
Mhm.
maintenance nightmares. So.
Regardless of what we do, if we try to, I know there's people that would like to save the water park. On an aside on that, you could get rid of all the rocks. Don't fix the rocks, but I'm not trying to go there tonight. You're going to have a considerable cost. I mean, your cost to maintain the water park, to fix it and put the money into reserves, is close to what you, in a ballpark, at least on paper, what you may pay for new pool there. Have something new that we don't have to worry as much about. Community pool. Let's see. I noticed on the flood map, looked like there wasn't any flooding in that pool area, but I also noticed it didn't look like there was any flooding projected over in Kellums, just as an aside. I don't know. Right?
It's the, go ahead, do you want to speak to that?
That's the
Wayne?
2050 map that was produced as part of the flood resiliency study.
Okay, good.
You're correct.
It's good news, I think. Let's see, just some peripheral stuff. People are going to wonder what the capacity is going to be. Job opportunities. We know that that'll be scaled back somewhat. This whole thing about selling food over there, I think we got a lot of survey data back that, all of that could go out the window, selling food. Seems to be problematic. Maybe it's something simpler than burgers, but would the season be the same as water park, you think?
Yes, we would expect it to be the same, but like we said, there might be some other features that we could add in that maybe have a longer lifespan of season.
That'd definitely be something to look at to make the, use of the space a little better.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you can elongate the season on either end, somehow it's win.
Sure,
Win-win.
absolutely. So we're thinking no 2024. We need to reflect on that just a little bit. But that was it. That's the only comments, observations I had. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Sure.
Several of my questions have already been asked and answered. I'll try to wander around here a little bit. Any idea of the difference in possible costs for the two alternatives we're looking at? Is one significantly more or less than the other?
I don't think either one's significantly more or less than
I
the
wouldn't
other.
think so. Yeah.
The goal of the second concept was just to try to utilize as much of the existing park as we could.
Uh-huh.
It might save 15-20%.
Okay. And have we looked at all at the impact on our staffing from these alternatives? Do we see a significant reduction in the staffing needs, which is, of course, a big part of our challenge of budget is how much staff we have to have over there?
Yeah, of course, the eventual design will dictate that, Larry, but from what I see here and what we've done previously, this would require 5 lifeguards. Five lifeguards on duty at one time, period.
Opposed to
18.
18.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Other things, just a general comment. I'm very, very supportive of this as an amenity for town residents. But I also think from an economic development point of view, we need to look at it as an attraction to bring people to town. And I'll just point out, when you look at the additional considerations in the memo here, in FY 18 through 22, the vast majority, except for 20, vast majority of admissions were out of towns. We have to keep that going. And I do notice that unaudited for FY 23, I guess we haven't finished counting all the numbers for FY 23.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. But you're anticipating it might be as much as 61% town admissions?
The emission amount or total is accurate. It's
Okay.
not the finances have not been
And I
completely.
think that's
sealed.
probably because we upped the rate so much for out-of-towners that they're not coming.
Correct.
Okay. One more here. Oh, I think you answered this one already, Brittany, but on the significant direct and indirect costs unallocated to water park related to operations absorbed through the general fund. Again, refresh my memory as what we're talking about there.
They are for the utility fund, capital and water usage. And then also for the general fund is staffing costs, some professional fees, insurance, a number of items that were spread across, should have been spread across multiple funds and were just absorbed by the general fund.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
Sir. Mr. Vice President, I think you have a new,
Oh.
what you call it up there? You got one up there?
Hey.
Yeah. That's Jaworski. You crossing off that Jaworski was tough.
All right, I'm gonna break this into two groups. I do have a kind of a list of questions on this, but I feel like that's secondary to what we really need to do tonight. Although I'm happy to talk about this more. So I just want to start with one core point. I think it's really important to understand this, and I want to make sure that I have it right. If we open the park in 2024 as is, we will have to put a fair amount of money into the park, and we will still lose a big chunk of money to run the park as it has been run, correct? Yeah, so to me, that your item number one that you want us to weigh in on, it's a no-brainer. If we're going to make this change, and I think the change is inevitable, it makes all the sense in the world to start immediately to do that. As far as what we're talking about here, there is nothing negative that I can come up with here. This is so exciting. It's an opportunity to really make something special. And I hope folks are tuned in tonight, and I hope we do a good job at getting these plans in front of people as they evolve, and we get feedback and we listen to that feedback, because we have an opportunity here to make something that is going to be really special focused for town residents. It's going to impact property values in a positive way. It's going to be the most valuable amenity, and I think the most used amenity in town. So I am really, really excited about that. A couple of notes I think we should consider as we move this overarching project forward. I'd like to see us have some green space. I've talked about that before. I understand that maybe, Wayne, we do things in two steps. Maybe we have the features and we build a park, and then we maybe remove some buildings and so on as a second step. If the budget requires that, that's fine. But if we have the ability to get rid of these buildings that we're not going to use, particularly the food building, let's do it. Let's get some grass in there if we can. It's a place for people to play games. You know, you can get cornhole out there, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to see us consider that. I'd like to see us blanket the park with internet. So people using the park have the ability to do that, whether it's work remotely or stay entertained, whether kids are running through the bucket drop. I think we need to consider off-season use. I've also talked about this. So I've always hated that parks are open Labor Day to Memorial Day to Labor Day. Today it was 85 degrees out. I doubt we'll be open in October, but I would like to see us look at keeping the park open towards the end of the season, maybe a Friday to Sunday schedule. So, and again, I'm totally ahead of the discussion, I know, but I'd like to see us think about that when we think about budgeting. And I'd love to see us think about some off-season uses for the space. I've also thrown out some different ideas, a skating rink, some other types of things that maybe we can make use of seasonally. The last thing I'll say about the park about the overarching thing is I would like to see us include local businesses. I think one place that's an easy lift is for food services. If we have an opportunity to reach out to local businesses, they've certainly been receptive for Taste the Beaches types of things. So I think that's a possibility. I think if we focus on town residents, if there's an opportunity to incorporate businesses, overnight guests, I'd like to see us investigate that as a possibility. So I'm going to stop there on those comments. I'm going to take a minute and ask some specific questions about these concept designs. Either of these designs, I feel like this is preliminary, and that's fair to say, right? I mean, it's great. These are great ideas, but it's pretty preliminary.
You're absolutely correct.
So any design that we look at, anything that you present to us, I assume one major thing is they will be on the pilings, 100%.
That's
Because
correct.
otherwise Jay would come up here and beat us all about
I would too.
that. This does, though, maintain the existing slides,
It does.
the big slide and everything.
Correct.
Yeah, that's pretty cool if that works. What about the faux rock structures? Because you do have the building to remain, which is the pump house underneath and then the elevator to the slides.
Vision there would be to remove the faux rock structures and refinish the existing building that's there. The faux rock structures somewhat hide that building. It wouldn't be as hidden in the future. It may have a different theme that would be architecturally pleasing. That's stuff we'll get into in a design build part. But some of that faux rock structure is falling apart and it needs to go.
So this is very much a personal opinion. Again, others may disagree. The public may disagree. I would be very happy if the faux rock structure went away. I think there was a day when it was great, and I think that day is past. But what we do should be current and appealing to the eye when people drive by it. So again, we're kind of ahead of where that is. The last question I have is on the second design plan, you laid out these two pools, and I'm kind of curious why I like, again, we'll see lots of designs and lots of configurations. I kind of like the way this is laid out, but why not just connect the two pools? Or is that because the walls of the existing pool you were trying to use, or?
Because you get too large of a space to limit the amount of lifeguards that you need.
Oh, that's interesting.
The
Okay.
larger the pool you have, the more lifeguards you need around it. So if I limit the size of the pool, I can monitor each pool with 1 or 2 lifeguards instead of 4 or 5.
Interesting. Okay. That's a good consideration. I'll just wrap up by saying again how excited I am about this. Let's see where it leads. Thank you.
Adam?
Thank you. First of all, I'll say that the tour of the water park was eye-opening in what would need to be done to make that a viable option. Most of us don't drive a car that's 28, 29 years old. The water park is most definitely showing its age, so something needs to be done. I think that's, I'll say that. It's a part of our past, and it's been wonderful. I think the biggest thing we'll lose, or one of the biggest things we'll lose, is the employment opportunities that the water park provided for our children from the age of 14 on. Remember, 49% of the water park staff in the last report that I remember came from Chesapeake Beach, and that's a shame. But with the state of the current water park, I think it's inevitable in some manner. But that ought to be recognized, what that water park has meant as a first job opportunity for our children. It's been wonderful. So I just wanted to say that. I'm not going to say a lot about the actual design. I do have a few questions on the design, but not a lot. My first one is, what I took away from the survey was the importance of the lazy river. Is it my assumption, which could be totally wrong, is that we don't want a lazy river because of the amount of lifeguards that are required to man that lazy river, and therefore you have staffing costs? Because that's one of the main things I took away from the survey. Am I wrong? And is it the staffing costs that are stopping us from having a lazy river, or is it still a consideration?
You're absolutely right. It's the staffing costs. What I didn't get into details with Charlie when he asked the question was, you have something in a code called, I just lost the term, reaction distances. I have to have so many lifeguards within certain square feet of each pool. And when you stretch that pool out over the lazy river, that's where your lifeguard costs skyrocket. So where today you're using 18 lifeguards to watch this pool, I can do it in 5. So that's why the national trend is away from lazy rivers. Now, they can be done. There's nothing wrong with them. It just significantly increases your fiscal costs.
No, and I understand that. It's just, it was one of the primary things that I took away from the survey was the desire and need or the enjoyment from a lazy river. So I think that we ought to look at that. My second sort of engineering question is, again, on that water park tour, which Jay did a phenomenal job, not a surprise, it was amazing, is that the single largest investment at the water park is our pilings. So my question to you is, how many pilings do we have, and how many in these 2 diagrams are you actually leveraging, using as a pool or as a part of the structures? How many pilings do we have, and how many are we using? Are we using 50% of them, 20%?
We're using all of them. The pilings are what holds up the entire park. I don't know how many pilings we have, but I've looked at the plans. It's probably 100, might be
Mhm.
150. Could
Yeah,
be.
it's
I
the
can go
single
look at the plans.
biggest, you know, in talking to Jay, it was the single biggest like cost and the biggest single sort of thing that we have going for us is how do we leverage as many of those pilings as possible? That's what I took away from that water park tour. And I just want to ensure, I mean, if you just have walkways, you're not leveraging the pilings per se.
I
and
am,
How?
because if they weren't on pilings, they would sink.
Are you leveraging them to the best use possible? That's, it's just something to consider, you know, like the highest use.
Well, again, when we get into the design build firm and we look at different concepts, maybe we'll have different scenarios where different layouts where we'll have more water on top of piles, which I think is what you're getting at, instead of people. But you know, that's yet to come.
Or something that I can't think of, you know, maybe not a water attraction, maybe another type of attraction. I don't know what, but it's just something I really want us to consider as we design is leveraging the pilings to the highest possibility that we can get from that large expense that occurred 30 years ago. That's other than that on the design, I'll say that I looked at the census site today because I'm always curious about what the newest American Community Survey results are. And as we go through with this park, and I do think we need to do something. So know that I'm supportive of doing something. So if we need to close down the park, I know we can't vote or do anything, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm supportive of that. That park has been wonderful, but it's outlived its use. 24% of our population is over 60, 24%. But 27% is 19 and under. So we have a larger percentage of population that is 19 and under, and that percentage continues to grow. And so I want us to really, as we go through this process, to consider the little people in our life that don't have a vote. I know 18 and 19-year-olds do, but the littler people do not. And so we really need to keep those little people in stark relief and stark focus. So those are my comments on the design. I think it's really missing a lazy river, but I understand why. Because I took that away from the survey. Let's get into some numbers, if we may. I have some questions. I'm assuming that what I got on Saturday is the same exact, because that's what I wrote on. Is that fair? Okay. Just make sure I'm talking apples to apples. My first question, where are they? Is let's talk about the $975 and the idea of capital connections, if we may. With a water park as it currently exists, it doesn't really have a large sewer cost. Is that correct? I'm thinking of capital connections. It would need many EDUs to handle the bathroom, and the water that's in the water park itself gets over time dechlorinated and then spread through irrigation. So it's not going into the wastewater treatment plant. So is that correct? Am I wrong?
That's not correct. It does go to the treatment plant during the season. We cannot dispose of that as groundwater during the season.
So there's there's water in like the lazy river and in the activity pools that actually go into the stormwater system.
The sewer,
It does.
It goes to
Treatment
treatment
plant.
It
plant.
goes to the treatment plant.
correct. Not the storm sewer.
And
the
we've never
treatment
metered that? How much? Because
plant.
I
No,
would,
it's not metered.
I know that we need to meter the water, but the vast majority of that water would not go into the sewer system, would it?
During the season, there's a good portion that evaporates, but it does go to the treatment plant. Is the answer to the question during the season?
So how many EDUs is the current?
Do you have that calculation handy?
54.
54.
So it's 54, and so they never bought capital connections at the 3,000 rate at the time, or they don't pay the $50 charge, or now it's 100, I think, or
It's a
150.
combination of both things. It's a combination of the usage and the past capital connection fees that were not paid.
Okay, I'm not sure I completely. I still have questions on that, but since we're considering not having that model anymore and moving to a different sort of pool, it may be mute. You know what I mean? It might not make a difference. Although we may not know, is there an expectation that whatever is built in place of the current water park, that it will be a enterprise fund? An enterprise fund?
No.
No, and I don't think we've talked about funding, and I think that would have to be discussed before we could talk about how the fund would be set up.
Well, it says that we would need, on 3 here, it says long-term annual operating commitment from the general fund. That means that, is the general fund expected to cover the complete cost of this, or is there going to be are we still going to have an enterprise fund for the water park?
It would be Brittany, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, it wouldn't be an enterprise fund. And there's no way that it could be self-supporting. It would have to move to a special revenue fund where all the revenue received for that amenity would be allocated just for that amenity, but the general fund could contribute.
And so you wouldn't have this-
Isn't that what the county does now?
Yes.
So you wouldn't have the stipulations that go along with having an enterprise fund, so it would not be expected to cover its own costs. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, that's good, because I've always been a little iffy and kind of about how the funds interact with each other. And so if we go in this acknowledging that it's no longer an enterprise fund, but whatever's kind of like earned. Holly, Ms. Wall, so I heard that there was a meeting between the town and the county. So is the county interested in participating in any of this, or what was that meeting about?
So I met with the Calvert County Parks and Rec director. The county owns the land, obviously. And so we had a conversation about plans for improvements to the infrastructure at the park. So there has been no request made of the county for anything in particular, but we are keeping them in the loop as a partner to the park as they own the land and as a party to an agreement that we have with them to operate the water park.
Regarding that agreement, because I kind of vaguely remember it, I think I might have read it years ago. I vaguely. Would there be any, and I'm not looking for legal advice, so we don't need to, is there any problems with what we want to do with the way our current water park agreement stands, using that land with the county that you anticipate?
No. No.
Did I ask that well? Okay. You know where I'm going. I just want to make sure that we can do this if we wanted to do it. Yeah, I think when looking at these numbers, it's interesting if in our next life, if we could like bold out 20 and 21, because that was COVID. And I think that things were strange then a little bit. I'll just say that. So the only way, let's say that, I forgot what Wayne said, 3 to 5 million. What's the town's, how do you intend to pay for that? Would it be through the unallocated reserves we have in the general fund? Would it be through a bond? I know it's a question, but now that we are not going to have the revenues coming in the way we did, what is the expectation?
I kind of only heard half of what you said, but I think I have an idea. You know, me, I look at that ARP money as a great way to, we've got close to 4 million there. I mean, my opinion, everybody has one, is that what better way to acknowledge and tell our citizens how we spent that ARP money? We used half, 2/3, whatever, to build you an aquatic center. I mean, it's a beautiful story. That's a thought that I have, and obviously we haven't gone that far in our discussions, but
I think
4 million is a heck of a way to start.
you'll know how I feel.
I don't know how you feel.
I mean, I'm not a fan of long-term debt. And so the
Oh,
idea
yeah,
of using
yeah,
ARPA
yeah,
funds would
yeah.
be fantastic. And then topping that off with unallocated reserves would be fantastic, in my opinion.
It's doable.
I think it is with good planning and then a good design. Is the expectation, and again, we don't know, that this would be, I think with the pools, I'm assuming that it's going to be fenced in as it currently is, that there would be an admissions gate to get in, that it would be a controlled environment as opposed to a park where I could walk in any time of the year and any time of the day, especially because we have pools. Is that a fair assumption that this is going to be a fenced off, enclosed areas where you have to pay? I just want to make sure we're on the same page because I could see desires for it to be more open. And I'm just asking. Yeah, we'd have to have some way to block it off, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's still early, but
Which is a good point.
I think it's a good start. But just know that I think it's heartbreaking that we have to maybe put to rest the water park after how much it's meant to all of us. I've been here since 1997, and it's a
Yeah,
shame.
so I can get you that. Yeah, and I will acknowledge your comment that, just wanted to comment on Dr. Bodine. One, I love your comment about little people because little people must learn how to swim. It's must. We have a big body of water out there. Every time I read about a boat accident or a drowning, first thing everybody thinks of is, were they wearing a life jacket? Oops, yeah. I'm always thinking, were they wearing a life jacket and do they know how to swim? And this is coming from the eyes of a lifelong swimmer. Yes, Councilwoman, you're right. It's early, but it's not. And my thought to the council and actually the town is basically, I plan to keep this issue on the front burner. I think what I want to do is have a monthly status at our work sessions every month. Talk about it. Let's see where we are. Progress report. Keep it on the front burner. So that's the way to do it. And I think the public would appreciate that. I know Councilman Morris had a question. Maybe.
I still have one more. I wasn't done.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No. You
I apologize.
go.
So I kind of told you my opinion on number 1, which was deciding the 2024 season. On number 2, immediate short-term substantial capital commitment. What is that substantial capital commitment? Is it the 975? Is this something that I don't understand, or was it depend on whether or not the park opened in 2024?
It's more of that $3 to $5 million capital improvement cost to renovate the park and create a pool that would be within, similar to the concepts before you, that we would take it out for an RFP for design build. And so we're thinking that the capital contribution would between that range of 3 and 5 million.
I understand that question better now. I didn't know if, and then long-term, that goes to the enterprise question that I had. So I think all my questions are done.
Okay, very good. You wanted to,
Yeah, I just, because. Yeah, thank you. Just being a work session, I didn't know if we wanted to give everybody one more quick round. I do have a few comments.
okay, well, we could go in order. Well, we started with Keith last time.
That's right. I just, not to answer now, but I thought one of the things we could do is think about the efficiency that would make a new pool less expensive than the current pool. Fewer lifeguards is the easy one that we grab onto, but what about more efficiency in terms of filters and chemicals? Does that work out better with this sort of configuration instead of our current configuration? The emergency repairs that happen every year, sometimes closing the pool during season. If we could put some of those, not now, but if we could put some of those together and get the numbers together and say, okay, and this is another reason why a new pool with new filters, new processes, better equipment, maybe better monitoring of chemicals within the pool is, another bonus that, if we could line up some of those, I think it would be great.
That's probably the largest bonus in all of this is the operating efficiency
Mhm.
from all those, like you said, the chemicals, the water,
Mhm.
all of those components.
No leaks. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry's comments on economic development were well placed. I definitely would underscore his comments there. The importance of changing the type of fund that we have from the enterprise to the special fund gets us out from underneath some grant issues that I think we've been realizing that hems us in on certain things. Absolutely, the lower risk has got to be huge, especially for you. County buy-in. I don't know I don't know what you're thinking in your mind there, Mr. Mayor. The cost to build this thing, maybe if the county is interested in trying to partner with us in that capacity, we could work out some kind of rate that county possibly share the same rate for 5 years. I don't know. I'm just spitballing that. The bond versus the ARPA. Even though, will hold Kellam's dear to my heart. I like the idea of using the ARPA for that. It's not using the taxpayer money and not in a bond with all the interest and all of that jazz, and saddling the next council and subsequent councils with that. Being practical, projecting a loss for 2024 already, and the temporary band-aids that you were outlined to us all. I think I agree with Councilman Fink, and I think you as well, that we're at the starting line now for this. Let's see. Councilman Fink discussed thoroughly vetting the new area. I'd certainly like to get this kind of energy behind Kellam's. Just a comment there. What is built, whatever we build over here at the water park site, I don't know. My comment was to operate in the black. I don't know if I think there's a lot of discussion with there. I think we're already straying away from that a little bit, and I'm open to the way you've mentioned how the county handles some things, and it's not that unusual, folks. The Olympic length pool, I would like the idea of that as an alternative there. Maybe they can host some things there. I'm thinking of the little kids again. I know that they'll throw them in there and swim. Swim meet, yeah. I'm thinking whatever you're all going to do, whatever we're thinking of is, thinking about the little kids too. Maybe in an area that wouldn't be more heavily adult used was my thinking of it. And that was it. Thank you.
You guys, if you could have.
I will only take just a quick second to thank the staff for the work they did in all this prep, because I think that gets lost in kind of crunching these numbers and bringing some tough questions before us. So I've said most of what I want to say. I just will reiterate.
That's spectacular.
One more kind of financial question. Or when, as we potentially go through this process, and we don't open the water park in 2024, if that's a decision that is made, when we talk about the enterprise fund for the water park and a special fund for the water park, my kind of question is this: are there any costs to make current the water park enterprise fund before we actually close it? Like, do we have to make it in some manner whole because it's such in debt before we can legally close it or financially close it?
That's correct. If it's rolled up to the general fund will absorb any deficit that's in the water park and will reduce our unrestricted. We have a $3 million I'd mentioned payable to the general fund from the water park, and the deficit would just come out of that as a write-off, essentially, to decrease our assets in the general fund.
Say that one more time. So we'd have, when you say the right, I kind of understand and I kind of don't, I'll be honest. So with that, we'll say $3 million. So it's not a write-off, is it? I mean, because it's all our money in a way.
Correct. And it's very confusing, so it's hard to simplify, but part of that unrestricted per se asset is actual assets and what can be sold and used, and it would have to be kind of broken down to the bottom to have a true number of what the general fund will absorb. But since we are the creditor to to the water park, it's going to come out of the general fund unrestricted.
So in the grand scheme of things, I think I can make this simple for me to understand. If the water park is $3 million overall in debt, will the general fund unallocated reserves go down $3 million? So we go from, I think, 7 million to then 4 million, at least on the books.
10 to 7.
10 to 7, at least on the books per se.
Yes.
Because, okay. All right, that's just a consideration also. On a way to, I consider that if I talk about closing out the enterprise fund, that's what I'm kind of talking about from now on as we go through this process. Because that makes we're still in great financial shape as a town. Don't anybody get it wrong. It's just, we need to understand what the numbers are going to look like as we move forward. And thank you for explaining that. I appreciate
Okay,
it.
very good. Council lightning round. Madam.
I bet you thought the hard decisions were over after COVID.
I heard.
This has been a heck of a year for hard decisions between the beginning of the year deciding that, well, we're going to try, see what happens, put out that social experiment of charging what it takes to support the park and discovering, well, that's not going to work, to actually taking a good hard look at the infrastructure and saying, the whole thing doesn't work. I am a Band-Aid off fast person. So I am all over this. Close it down, get immediately shovels in the ground and fix it. And then 2025, we can have a big opening party for the town. I think that would be brilliant. Thank you.
You stole my thunder, but go ahead.
I live for it.
Yeah,
This
just,
is a council lightning round, by the way.
yeah, I'll
It's-
comment on the topic of the du jour of the evening here. It's a big one. I don't think that was a hard decision. We went through some things and we had, we were sprung with some reserve surprises, early in the year. But it seems like it wasn't that hard of a decision here. I mean, I didn't do any of the heavy lifting, so I just got to look at everything and hear the professionals talk, and optimistic. Thank you.
Good discussion tonight. I appreciate everyone's insight. It always makes me think of other things that I hadn't thought of when I hear other people's questions. On a totally unrelated matter, I just wanted, for the record, point out that the firehouse is having its annual open house this Sunday, noon to 4. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to stay on the water park theme. I would encourage people, if you have a chance, go up to Annapolis to Truxton Park. Take a look at the pool up there. Go to Cove Point. Go to King's Landing. These are amenities that are amazing, and they are crowded and they are being used, and we have an opportunity to put one in our backyard. Outstanding.
Adam?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go off topic too. Just remind you that Paddle and Pathway pickup is this Saturday. I really look forward to all of you being out there if you can. It'd be great to see any of you. So we'll be there on the creek, paddling away, picking up litter. That, and I think this was definitely a long time coming regarding the water amenities that we're going to have. It wasn't a snapdash decision. It's been coming for a long time. Thank you.
Okay, right now I need a motion to close the meeting under statutory authority of Maryland Annotated Code pursuant to General Provisions Article 3-305B, subsection 3, to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related hereto.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. To everybody out there, this meeting is essentially over. All our big audience.